February 18th, 2025. Santa Fe, New Mexico, at a delivery truck sat idling outside a gated estate. The driver honked, but no one answered. Newspapers were piling up in the driveway. The house was dark. For the neighbors, who hadn't seen the elderly couple for nearly a week, the silence was heavy. They finally called the police for a wellness check. When the deputies arrived, they forced the door open. The house belonged to a man who was once the loudest, most intense presence in Hollywood. A man who won 2 Oscars. A man who defined toughness for a generation. Gene Hackman. For 20 years, Gene had fought to disappear. He wanted to be a ghost. But what the officers found inside was a tragedy that broke their hearts. Gene Hackman, 95 years old, was found dead in his armchair, but he wasn't alone. Lying nearby was his beloved wife, Betsy. The coroner's report would later reveal a sequence of events so rare and devastating. It sounds like a dark thriller. It involved a deadly virus carried by rodents. It involved the erasing fog of Alzheimer's. And it involved a husband who, in his final confused moments, simply sat down beside the woman he loved and waited for the end. How did one of the greatest actors in history end up dying in such isolation? Why did no one know they were sick until it was too late? Today, we uncover the minute-by-minute story of his final act. This is a tragic, true story of Gene Hackman's long goodbye. To understand the tragedy of his death, you have to go back 20 years and understand the obsession of his life. Privacy. Most actors claim they hate fame, but they secretly love the applause. They retire, but then they come back for one last movie. They write memoirs. They go on talk shows to complain about the paparazzi. Gene Hackman was different. He didn't just retire. He vanished. The year was 2004. Gene was 74 years old. He had just finished filming a mediocre comedy called Welcome to Mooseport, and on the set, he was tired. He was grumpy. He looked at the cameras, the lights, the makeup artist touching up his face, and he realized he had absolutely nothing left to give. He felt like a prop, a commodity. In a rare interview years later, he said, "I didn't want to be Gene Hackman anymore. I just wanted to be Gene. I wanted to see what life was like without a script." So he did the unthinkable. He walked away. He didn't announce it. He didn't hold a press conference. He simply instructed his agent to say no to everything. Scripts piled up on his desk. Directors called, begging for 5 minutes of his time. Offers for millions of dollars came in for cameos. Gene ignored them all. He sold his house in Los Angeles. He packed his bags. And he moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, a place known for its vast skies and its indifference to celebrity. For the next 20 years, he lived the life of a hermit monk. He painted pictures that he rarely showed anyone. He wrote historical novels that received modest reviews, which he loved because they were judged on a writing, not his famous face. He was occasionally spotted riding his bicycle around town, wearing a beat-up hat and sunglasses, looking like any other retiree. Locals knew who he was, but they knew better than to approach him. Gene Hackman had a reputation. He could be volatile. He could be rude. He built a wall around himself that said, "Stay out." But the architect of this wall wasn't just Gene. It was Betsy. Betsy Arakawa was a classical pianist. She was 30 years younger than him. They married in 1991, and she became the center of his universe. Gene had lived a chaotic life before her. His first marriage collapsed under the weight of his Hollywood ambition. He was known for his temper on set. He was a man at war with himself. Betsy brought him peace. She was a calm water to his fire. She was the only person who could look him in the eye and tell him to breathe. When they moved to Santa Fe, she became his gatekeeper. She filtered his calls. She managed his life. She protected him from the world he despised. They created a paradise of two, a fortress of solitude where they could grow old together, far away from the flashing bulbs of the paparazzi and the fake smiles of producers. It was a beautiful, romantic dream. They thought they had beaten the system. But as they aged, that isolation, that distance from the rest of the world, began to transform from a shield into a danger. When you lock the world out, you also lock yourself in. And when trouble comes and the phone line goes dead, there is no one there to hear you scream. Hollywood is a machine that eats people alive. Gene Hackman was one of the few who managed to escape its jaws on his own terms. He chose love over fame. He chose reality over illusion. If you respect a man who walks away from millions to find peace with his wife, hit that subscribe button. We are here to honor the legends who kept it real until the very end. Join our community. For a long time, the silence from Santa Fe was interpreted as contentment. Fans thought, good for him. He's enjoying his retirement. He's finally happy. But in the last few years, around 2023 and 2024, the silence took on a different, more unsettling quality. Rumors began to circulate in the tight-knit Santa Fe community. Gene was seen less and less on his bicycle. The familiar sight of him riding down the canyon roads disappeared. On the rare occasions he was spotted at a local bistro, he seemed frail, confused. He would sometimes stare blankly at a menu, relying on Betsy to order for him. He would look at old friends and not recognize them. The truth, which the family kept hidden with fierce determination, was that the great mind of Gene Hackman was fading. He had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. It is a cruel irony. Here was an actor known for his razor-sharp intelligence. Think of him in The French Connection. The fast-talking, quick-thinking Popeye Doyle, always 3 steps ahead of the bad guys. Think of him in The Conversation, playing a surveillance expert who notices every tiny detail, every nuance of sound. Think of him in The Royal Tenenbaums, delivering complex, witty dialogue with perfect timing. His brain was his instrument. His memory was his weapon, and now it was betraying him. Alzheimer's is a thief that takes everything by degrees. First, it takes the names of old friends. Then, it takes the memories of the movies. Eventually, it takes the ability to understand where you are, or who you are. But there was one thing it couldn't take: his reliance on Betsy. As his world became more confusing, Betsy became his anchor. She was his memory. She was his driver. She was his nurse. She was a voice that told him everything was okay when the shadows got too long and the room felt like it was spinning. Friends say that in late 2024, Gene rarely left the house. He was physically strong for a 94-year-old. His heart was good. His legs still worked, but his mind was trapping him in a loop of confusion. He needed Betsy for everything. If she left the room, he would panic. If he couldn't see her, he would call out for her name, over and over again. They became inseparable, not just out of love, but out of necessity. This dependency is what makes the final event so devastating. They were a closed system, 2 people against the world. But systems like that have a fatal flaw, a structural weakness that no one anticipates until it breaks. If the caretaker falls, who takes care of the helpless? If the anchor breaks, the ship drifts into the dark. And in late January 2025, something breached their fortress. It wasn't a paparazzi. It wasn't a fan trying to get an autograph. It was something microscopic, something ancient, and something deadly. Santa Fe is beautiful, but it is high desert country. It is wild. Nature is always scratching at the door, and with nature comes pests. According to the forensic investigation, sometime in late January 2025, field mice found their way into the basement or the pantry of the Hackman estate. It happens all the time in rural homes. Usually it's a nuisance. You set a trap, you clean it up, you move on. But these rodents were carrying Synombra orthohantavirus, a rare, deadly strain of hantavirus that affects the lungs. It is a silent killer. It is spread through dust. You don't need to be bitten. You don't need to touch the animal. You just need to sweep a floor, disturb some nested material, and breathe in the dust particles floating in a beam of sunlight. Investigators believe Betsy was the one who cleaned it up. She was the manager of the house. She took care of everything so Gene wouldn't have to worry. She likely saw the mess, grabbed a broom, and tidied it up, unaware that she was inhaling a biological weapon. The incubation period is 1 to 3 weeks. It is a ticking time bomb. By early February, Betsy likely started feeling ill. At first, it feels like the flu, fever, muscle aches, fatigue. For a woman in her 60s, she probably thought she just needed to rest. She probably told Gene, "Don't worry, I'm just a little tired." I'll be fine tomorrow. She didn't call a doctor. They were private people. They didn't like doctors coming to house unless it was an emergency. She thought she could tough it out. But hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS, moves fast. Once it enters the second phase, it is catastrophic. The lungs fill with fluid. The capillaries leak. It feels like drowning on dry land. We can only imagine the terror of those final days inside that big, silent house. The isolation they cherished became their cage. Betsy, struggling to breathe, gasping for air, too weak to get out of bed. And Gene, watching her. This is the part that breaks the heart. This is the nightmare scenario. Due to his advanced Alzheimer's, Gene likely didn't understand the severity of what was happening. He saw his wife lying down. He saw her sleeping more. Did he try to bring her water? Did he hold her hand? Did he realize she was dying? Or did he think she was just resting? In his confused mind, time probably had no meaning. Day turned into night and night into day. Without Betsy to make the call, the phone remained on the hook. Without Betsy to drive, the car stayed in the garage. The isolation they had built to protect themselves now sealed their fate. Sometime around Valentine's Day, Betsy Arakawa passed away in her sleep. Her lungs simply stopped working. The breathing stopped. The house went quiet. But Gene was still alive. Forensic pathologists estimate that Gene survived for another 3 to 4 days after his wife died. Try to comprehend those 96 hours. Try to imagine confusion, the fear, and the loneliness. The man who was once the smartest character on screen was now a confused elderly man, alone in a house with his deceased wife. He didn't call 911. He likely didn't know how to use a smartphone anymore, or perhaps he forgot the passcode. Or maybe in his fog, he didn't realize she was gone. He didn't leave the house to seek help. He didn't walk to the neighbors. He stayed. Maybe he thought she would wake up. Maybe he was afraid to leave her side. He sat by her. He waited. He likely sat in his chair, watching the sun move across the floor, waiting for Betsy to get up and make coffee, waiting for Betsy to turn on the lights. But she never moved. As the days passed, dehydration set in. He likely forgot to drink water. He forgot to eat. His heart, already old and tired, began to strain under the stress and the lack of medication that Betsy usually gave him. The panic of the situation, filtered through the lens of dementia, must have been terrifying. Or perhaps it was peaceful. Perhaps he just sat there, holding her hand, drifting in and out of memories. He didn't die of the virus. He died of a broken heart, compounded by the physical collapse and neglect. He simply went to sleep next to her and never woke up. When the police found them, they were together. It was a scene of tragedy, yes, but also a scene of profound, haunting loyalty. He had promised to be with her until the end, and he kept that promise, even when his mind had forgotten everything else. It is a tragedy that shakes us to the core, but it is also a love story. Gene Hackman didn't want to live in a world without Betsy. In the end, they left together. If you are moved by the story of devotion and fragility of our legends, please subscribe. We are the keepers of their stories. We don't let them be forgotten. The news of Gene Hackman's death has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, not just because he is gone, but because of how he went. It forces us to look at the man behind the roles one last time. And it forces us to ask, did we appreciate him enough when he was here? Gene Hackman was the greatest everyman in cinema history. He wasn't a pretty boy like Redford. He wasn't an action god like Stallone. He looked like a neighbor. He looked like a coach. He looked like a cop. He looked like a man you would see at the hardware store. That was his superpower. He could disappear into any role. He could become anyone. He terrified us as Little Bill in Unforgiven, a villain so realistic you forgot he was acting. He made us cheer as Coach Dale in Hoosiers, giving us hope when we had none. He made us laugh as the blind hermit in Young Frankenstein, showing a comedic timing that rivaled the greats. He was a chameleon. But unlike other actors who disappear into roles to find themselves, Gene disappeared because he was hiding. He famously said, "I like the acting. I just don't like the business." He hated the fakeness. He hated the interviews. He hated the lack of privacy. He hated the way Hollywood turned art into a circus. He spent 40 years giving us pieces of his soul on screen, and then he spent the last 20 years trying to get them back. He wanted a quiet life, and in a cruel twist of fate, he got the quietest death imaginable. Critics will talk about his Oscars. They will talk about the French Connection. They will analyze his technique. But the true measure of Gene Hackman wasn't his trophies. It was his integrity. He walked away from the biggest paycheck in the world because he wanted to be with his wife. He wanted to paint. He wanted to be real. He refused to sell out. He refused to do the commercials, the sequels, the reality shows. He stayed true to himself until the very last breath. In an industry of narcissists, he was a man who just wanted to be normal. And like any normal man, he was vulnerable to age, to disease, and to grief. His final days remind us that no matter how tough you are on screen, nature is tougher. No matter how rich you are, you cannot buy immunity from tragedy. No matter how high your walls are, you cannot keep death out. The house in Santa Fe is empty now. The police tape has been removed. The desert wind blows through the trees, carrying the silence back into the canyon. The paintings Gene worked on for years are sitting in the studio, unfinished. The brushes are dry. The bicycles are in the garage, tires flat, waiting for a rider who will never return. Gene Hackman has finally achieved the ultimate privacy. He has vanished into history. He is reunited with Betsy, away from the pain, away from the confusion, away from the noise of the world he left behind. We will miss him. We will miss that laugh. We will miss that intensity. We will miss that twinkle in his eye that let us know he was smarter than everyone else in the room. But we should not pity him. He lived 95 years on his own terms. He loved one woman faithfully for 3 decades. And he died in his own home, not in a hospital bed surrounded by machines and strangers. In the end, he got what he wanted. He got to be just Gene. The movie is over. The screen has gone dark. But what a picture was. Rest in peace, Gene. Rest in peace, Betsy. You are finally safe from the world. What is your favorite Gene Hackman memory? Is it Popeye Doyle chasing that train? Is it Lex Luthor plotting to take over the world? Or is it Coach Dale telling his team to play their game? Let us know in the comments below. And please share this video to honor a true legend. God bless you for watching.